Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. In this video, we are from group 9 aka Tiga Abdul, which only have 3 participants, which is Hani Najmi bin Muhammad Arif Chan, Pak Aidini bin Arman Shah, and Muhammad Uzair Amin bin Haris Hariri. We choose question number 2, so we're gonna give our answer for question number 2. So for part 1, table of entities and activities. Firstly, the store executive will order the quantity specified by the vendors to determine the order quantity, and then the vendors will fulfill the order and delivers the order to order inventories to SESB, and then the lorry driver will unload the inventories at the receiving dock, and then the operation employee takes out the respective purchase order copies from the incoming purchase order file. Then they will inspect the inventories receipts for possible damage, and then they will verify the inventory description and stated on vendor's delivery note are consistent with the information in the purchase order. And then the operation employee will simply verify the quantity received as per delivery note, and then they will sign the designated section for receiving the information in the purchase order form and specifies the receiving date in the purchase order copy. And then they will keep the purchase order copies together with the vendor's delivery note into a complete file of date of the receiving. And then the store executive will update the quantity received onto respective inventory card and forward the original copy of purchase order to account units. For the cash disbursement system, firstly, account officer checks on invoice for payment file for any outstanding invoices that are becoming due within that week on every Monday. Then, for all invoices that becoming due, she takes out the invoice and attach the purchase order copy and enters the vendor's details into SESB's accounting system. And then the computer program will retrieve the respective vendor record from the vendor's master file and display all pending invoices on the screen. And then the account officer will choose the invoice for payment and record the payment details. And then the computer program will record the transaction into a cash disbursement file and creates a payment voucher register file. The computer program update the vendor's master file and general ledger master file for all transactions entered. And then the account officer will print a payment voucher for respective invoices due for payment and forward the payment vouchers to the account manager for payment processing. And then the account manager will make a payment using online banking to the respective vendors as per the payment voucher. And the account officer then will attach the purchase order, vendor's invoice, payment voucher and payment slip into the pay invoice file on the payment date. Then it will indicate the report from SESB accounting system comprising of purchase summary, account payable summary and total cash disbursement of the month. And then the account officer will forward the report to general manager.
Now we move on to the context diagram. So the context diagram for purchase order system, there are 3 external entities. The first one is vendors, the second one is operation employee, and the third one is account unit. The first one, vendors will fulfill the order and deliver the ordered inventories to SESB's receiving dock. When the ordered inventories arrive at SESB's receiving dock, the operation employee will handle the receiving process from the receiving dock area. Then they will inspect the inventory received for any possible damages. After all the inventories went through inspection, the operation employee will also sign the designated section in case of no discrepancies found in the order received. And lastly, the accounts unit will receive the original copy of the purchase order from Selamat, the store executive, after he updates the quantity received onto the respective inventory card for each delivered order. Next, the context diagram for cash disbursement system. There are also three external entities in this context diagram. The first one is vendors, the second one is account manager, and the third one is general manager. So the first one, the vendors will forward the invoice for purchase order to Lisa, the clerk, and then Lisa will choose the invoice payment and records the payment details. After that, she will forward the payment voucher to Jason, the account manager, for payment processing as soon as she prints a payment voucher for the respective invoices due to payment. And then Lisa will forward a report from SCS-based accounting system comprising of purchase summary, accounts payable summary, and total cash disbursement of the month to the general manager.
Hi, Assalamualaikum. I will be presenting the question A7 Roman and A8 Roman. So the question asks us to draw a data flow diagram and a flow chart for each of the process. So we'll start with the purchase order system. So the purchase order system, first process is the preparation of pre-numbered purchase order. The pre-numbered purchase order are prepared by using the information obtained from the vendor's data, such as the minimum quantity set by each vendor for each order. So one copy of the pre-numbered purchase order will be sent to the vendors, while another copy will be filed under the incoming purchase order file. So the next process is the receiving of orders. So when the vendor receives their PPO, they will fulfill and deliver the order, while the operation employees will carry out the receiving process, and they will start by taking the copy of pre-numbered purchase order from the incoming purchase order file and use it to inspect and verify the orders for any discrepancies. So once there are no discrepancies, the purchase order and vendor's delivery note will be filed under the completed delivery file, which will then, the next process are the updating of inventory. So every now and then the storeroom executive Selamat will review it and will update the new amount of inventory in the inventory card. After finishing updating it, the original copy of purchase order will be sent to the accounts unit, while the second copy of purchase order and vendor's delivery note will be filed under the completed delivery file. The next system that we will ask to do a DFD and flowchart for is the cash disbursement system. So the DFD and the flowchart that we have drawn are as shown in the slide. So the first process for the cash disbursement system is the receiving and inspection of purchase orders and vendors' invoices. So the vendors, after receiving the PPO that was sent, then will send their invoice to the accounts unit, while the storeroom executive Selamat will send the original copy of purchase order to the accounts unit after finishing updating and reviewing the inventory card. So the next process for this system is the recording and updating of purchasing information. So the purchasing information will first be recorded in the purchase file, while the invoices will be filed in the invoice for payment file and will be keep track of their due date. The transaction information will be updated in the vendor's master file along with the general ledger master file. So the third process for this system is the cash payment process, also known as the cash disbursement process. So to start off this process, the account clerk Lisa will use the information she gained from the vendor's master file and the invoice for payment file, and she will use it to choose the invoices that are nearing their due dates. And after choosing the respective invoices, those invoices details will be filled in and the payment will be made in an online transfer. So after the online transfer, the transaction information will once again be updated in the vendor's master file along with the general ledger master file, while the purchasing information will be recorded in the cash disbursement file and also the payment voucher registry file. So after finishing the cash payment, all the documents such as the purchase order, the vendor's invoice, the payment voucher and payment slip will be filed in the paid invoice file. So all these documents will be used in the fourth process, which is the report preparing process. The documents will be used to prepare a report consists of the purchase summary, the account payable summary, and also the total cash disbursement for the month, which will be submitted to the general manager at the end of every month.
Okay. There are three possible strengths of internal control of the procedures. Firstly, transaction authorization in the sales of the system is a mechanism that present in the business. As we can see, the sales officer responsible to review and to approve the order made by a reseller. Then the second one is duty segregation, which means that the business has segregated activities to be done by more than one person. Then we can see that Azlina, as the sales officer, make sure the order made by the reseller checked and authorized, while the Selamat, the store executive, responsible for inventory control. And lastly, we have SASB has a good internal control of cash receipt system. As we can see, they use only postal check and online banking for payment. This can reduce the cash receipt fraud. There are four possible weakness in SASB's procedure. First one is not enough duty segregation. The lack of division of duties among workers may result in major undetected for organisation. For example, Shima is responsible for paying and handling his receivable account. The second one is internal control over check is not enough. The lack of control over the check will increase the chance of theft and loss of fund being deposited. For example, when all mails that come with check and other things, Sandra is the only one that open it. So this could lead Sandra to misuse the check by deposit it in her bank. So the third one is inventory control is too casual. Procedures for sales order, particularly related to the inventory that is delivered to the client. When the delivery item is arrived, the other department workers will come in order to help the inventory control workers. This could lead into the stealing of the product. The fourth one is insufficient practice of billing. The lack of duty in distinction between two tasks, which is also one of the potential drawback of the SESB. We can see Shima did not give enough information for the bill that she give for the customer.
Next, we'll be discussing about one risk exposure from each of the internal control weakness. For the first one is not enough duty segregation. This illustrates the absence of a job separation between two duties, which are paying and handling the receivable account, which was both handled by Shima. The lack of segregation could lead to intentional fraud. This is because the same person do more than one type of work could easily manipulate the data. Next, the risk exposure from the internal control over check is not enough. The risk of missing incoming emails and checks can go undetected. Sandra could raise the chance of fraud by depositing the check into her personal bank account, and this is more likely to go undetected because Sandra is placed under the confidence and obligation of the company. The risk exposure from inventory control is too casual, and employees' misuse of product is one of the threats that may result from the company's loss of control over inventory. As a consequence, it induces the depletion of business properties. Selamat only changes the inventory amounts on the basis of the delivery note, but does not liquidate them with the purchase order volumes and the quantities indicated on the pickup receipt. It shows that timely identification of a product still can be prevented, as there is a lack of accurate physical inventory of the organization. The risk exposure from the insufficient practice of billing. To investigate the company's possibility of failing to bill clients by providing an insufficient billing procedure, Shima only plans the sales invoice such as amount supplied and customer information according to the distribution details. As a consequence, lack of assets and profits and incorrect sales, inventory and receivable records for accounts would occur. Next, we will discuss about the appropriate internal control procedure to rectify each of the weakness. The first one, for not enough duty segregation. The company should imply the division of duties between the workers. This means to delegate separate roles and responsibilities to another individual to avoid harassment by the organization. Next, the internal control over check is not enough. The company should implementing a scheme for lock boxes. It could eliminate the possibility of workers forging checks in via an email. In order to track the check opening process, the company may also use recording facilities to minimize the risk of stolen business checks. Next, the inventory control is too casual. The annual physical counts of inventory in order to maximize control over inventory should have been made. For all inventory, the worker should also sign withdrawn from the warehouse in order to have a list and record on which worker is responsible for upholding responsibility. And then, the insufficient practice of billing. The company should be carried out several organizational monitoring to eliminate the reluctance to charge clients. For example, the matching of invoices with choosing tickets, packing lists and sales orders, instead of reconciling the shipping notice just to ensure that billing invoice is right. For part 2, we'll be discussing about the recommendations to the Malaysian Communications and Multimedia Commission, Cybersecurity Malaysia and private entities on 5 ways of fighting against cybercrime. So the first one is to strengthen the Communications and Multimedia Act 1988. The government should strengthen the Communications and Multimedia Act 1988. It is because the cybercrimes that was happening nowadays are expected to peak in 2021 all around the world, as written in an article published by the New Straits Times, dated 29th of November 2019. To prevent more cybercrimes to happen, a strict law structure should be implemented as it will help in reducing the cybercrimes rate in Malaysia. The second way is to create a platform that enables social media users to report cyberbullying. The Malaysian Communication and Multimedia Commission, MCMC, should work together with Royal Police Malaysia, PDRM, to create a platform that enables social media users to report cyberbullying cases or even suspicious posts directly to them so that they can take action immediately. It is because cyberbullying is dangerous and could affect someone's life. For example, in an article published on the Straits Times website dated 16th of May 2019, stated that a teenage girl committed suicide because her followers on Instagram voted for her to commit suicide. This is a serious problem and the organizations need to solve it quickly. Next, by strengthening the registration process of phone numbers. The MCMC and other related organizations need to strengthen the registration process of phone numbers to prevent the number of spam calls and text cases that might cause losses that will impact the nation. It is because Malaysia are amongst the top 20 nations to be affected by spam calls and spam texts stated in an article published on the New Straits Times on 10th of January 2020. Therefore, by strengthening the registration process of phone numbers, it will reduce the number of spam calls and text cases. An article published on Free Malaysia Today website dated 4th of November 2020 stated that around 920,000 phone numbers were terminated due to its dubious registration details. Next, to check all the virtual private networks VPN services. The MCMC and other related organizations should work hand in hand to ensure and check all the virtual private networks VPN services that are provided in Malaysia for any ties with scammers. For example, Europol, which is the US Department of Justice, has managed to take down a VPN service provider, which is a SafeINet. which is popular with scammers and ransomware groups, as stated in an article dated 26th of December 2020 that published on the Wired website. Therefore, Malaysia authority need to carry out a nationwide investigation to solve the scamming activities that are spreading throughout the nations currently, such as Macau scam. And lastly, to aid e-commerce sites to develop a better and stronger security. MCMC and other related organizations should aid e-commerce sites such as Shopee and Lazada to develop a better and stronger security. It is because there was an incident happened that has caused a woman in Kuantan, Pahang to incur a loss of nearly 85,000 ringgit by a new form of scam which is known as parcel scam, as stated in a news article published on the New Straits Times dated 30th of April 2020. Hence, the e-commerce sites should strengthen their security to ensure the safeness for all their customers and users. Therefore, these are all the suggestions and recommendations to the Malaysian Communication and Multimedia Commission, MCMC, and other related organizations in order to fight against the cybercrime. That's all from my group. Thank you.